Dominique, when you're tired and you can't be bothered, I know you run your own business, you have 3 children. What do you go to when you still want to eat healthily and provide healthy meals for you and your family?
Yeah, I think as I was saying earlier to you, this happened today. I had 7 minutes to eat and make my lunch. And I thought, well, do I not have anything? No, that wasn't going to happen. And do I have breakfast? And, I'm not having that for lunch. I had some pulses in the cupboard. I used one of my pastes. So it's like a flavour bomb right there. And literally put that in the frying pan, some black beans, cooked that for about 2 minutes until they were warm and added a fried egg in minimal oil. And that was a 7-minute meal. Now, if I wasn't coming here and I had an extra 5 minutes, I'd have added kimchi to that.
Okay.
I've always I think it's about having the right things in your cupboard and fridge. You don't have to go crazy, but I've always got veg in my fridge. I'd have some form of cabbage. I love cabbage and it lasts quite a long time. So a spring green, for example.
Yeah, they're like indestructible, aren't they?
Yeah, it's brilliant. So sometimes what I'll do is I literally shred that and have it again with a fried egg. I love my eggs and they actually are a really important part of my diet. With some chili oil on top of it. I often will have some leftover rice from the day before. If you're really short on time, you could have one of those pouches with sort of brown rice in them. And it's just simple but delicious. And when you've got those flavour bombs, whether it's sriracha, the pastes I already have, gochujang, miso, all of those things mean you can have a really tasty, delicious lunch I'm not kidding, in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, literally like what you just described there with your, what legumes did you use?
Today I had black beans.
Okay, so black beans and you got your flavour and then you got your protein on top. And then if you had a bit more time, you'd throw some greens or whatever you got.
Exactly.
That's basically how I eat.
Yeah.
That's literally how I eat, like very functionally. I'll probably have a side of like apple and peanut butter because I love like finishing off a savory meal with something sweet like that, or like some natural sugar in the form of fruits and stuff. But like it's just kind of like a habit and like a mindset change. Like when you are really stretched for time, there are these quick little things. Have you always cooked like that, or is it something you've learned along the way?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've gone through the cheese toaster years.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, so I go through phases. I do go through phases, but more recently I've been thinking more about what can I add rather than what can I take away, if that makes sense. So, I mean, I love seeds anyway, so I always have seeds in my breakfast. I always make my own muesli and granola. That's just what I have every day. I'll take it with me on holiday. Not kidding. We went skiing and I had a big bag of my muesli.
How'd you get there through customs?
Well, do you know what? Sometimes my husband does go, we are a kilo over. And we have a bit of a fight about that. But I am obsessed about bringing my own stuff like that because I know that if you don't, you get caught short.
So with the seed, tell me about your muesli then.
So this is really simple. On a basic level, I put loads of oats in them, jumbo oats, cinnamon, and nuts. I like pecans; they're my favourite for it. But nice, any nuts, and I buy big bags of mixed seeds, which have all the seeds in them. Chuck them in. Sometimes I'll do it with oil and a bit of maple or honey, but often I'll just toast it like it is. And that is it. And then I have it with kefir, which I absolutely love. And it will top it with, it sounds ridiculous, flax seeds, chia seeds, and hemp seeds.
Why does it sound ridiculous? That sounds like what I do.
Like, if I've got fresh berries, raspberries or blueberries, I will top it with that as well. I will have a little drizzle of honey or maple syrup because, and I think that's it.
That's awesome.
That's what I have.
Because like when I think of that, I just think, look, you're getting diversity, you're getting really good healthy fats, you're getting good proteins. The number one question is, do your kids like it?
They love it, actually.
Really?
How
old are your kids, sorry?
I've got 3 kids. So I'll give them that. I don't always give them all the toppings. Although, that said, if I'm making them porridge, for example, because they love porridge, I will insist they have a nut butter on it. So I always do that because porridge, it seems really filling, but then you can eat it and you're starving like 2 hours later or something, which is a bit weird. But when you add that protein, I do think it keeps you fuller for longer.
I agree.
Like the kefir definitely makes me fuller than if I have milk.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Because I've experimented with both and I'm like, I'm starving. It's like, I had milk with it.
Yeah.
So that is, that's something that I love to have. And they love it as well. So they, I think they didn't like the hemp seeds. I don't want those hemp seeds.
Yeah.
But they love toasted seeds. If I have some in a pan that I've, just made, they will literally go for it and there won't be any left.
That's so interesting. I mean, a lot of people don't like hemp seeds because sometimes when you buy them shelled, they do taste a little bit bitter, and sometimes they can be a bit rancid if you don't, if you've left them out or you don't put them in the fridge. I try and keep seeds that I've opened in the fridge, but I've got a small fridge at home, so sometimes it's just, trade-off I have to make. But if you toast them and add spices, that kind of thing, they can be a bit more palatable.
Yeah.
But hemp seeds I'm a massive fan of because they've got all 9 essential amino acids. They're so palatable. They're really high in fibre, and you can chuck them on both savoury and sweet.
Yep.
So yeah, that's like one of my favorites.
And if you toast them, does it retain its nutritional benefits?
So some of them, so you're going to be cooking off some of the nutrients. I think there is this sort of like idea out there that you have to eat everything raw to get the most nutrition out of them. And I think some processing actually releases some of the nutrients and makes them a bit more bioavailable. So I always use the example of broccoli. If you eat raw broccoli, it's kind of like green grayish color, but if you steam it, which is a form of processing, for just 3 minutes, it goes that vibrant dark green color. That's indicative of the sulforaphane and the other phytonutrients being a lot more bioavailable to you. So there's a degree by which if you cook something or process something or soak something, you're getting more of the nutrients out of it. If you overcook it or you over toast your hemp seeds, you're probably going to be destroying some of the nutrients in that as well. Same thing with olive oil. If you can use olive oil, good quality cold pressed olive oil in cooking, as long as it's like medium heat. If you're cooking it like you would, deep fry potato chips or something, you're going to lose the nutrients. You're going to destroy those fatty acid bonds. It's going to taste acrid. It's going to smoke. It's, you're not going to get as much nutrition. So everything's on a spectrum.
Yeah.
So you got those kind of things up your sleeve. In terms of the flavors, you mentioned 3 of my absolute favorites: miso, gochujang, and what was the other one? Kimchi?
Well, I love kimchi. I've always got that in my fridge.
Yeah,
I love it. It took me a while to understand what it was all about, to be fair. But as soon as I started understanding it was weird. I was, what do I do with this? And I suspect a lot of people think the same. And it does stink, let's be fair.
Yeah.
But I love it, and I love the acidity it brings. So even if I do have a cheese toastie, which still happened, and I love them, I always have kimchi with it.
Kimchi cheese toastie
delicious.
is like the most incredible hack. It's so nice as a snack.
Yeah.
And like gorgeous bread and like, oh man,
so good. Amazing. And actually, even we don't have mac and cheese often, but if the kids have it, I have to have kimchi with it. I don't like it. My husband would have beans with it. The kids will have beans and ketchup, and I'm like, I love kimchi with it. Oh
my god, I've just thought of a recipe just then, like a high protein pasta with like a really lovely base that you can make from tofu or beans, like real sort of rich meaty vibes, and then like kimchi muddled through the pasta with cheese on top. Wow,
yeah, I love it in cooking because it's actually quite versatile. So you don't have to just have it on the side. Delicious in fried rice. I've got a baked rice dish in my new book, which is Korean chicken and kimchi rice, and it just adds a sort of a twang.
Yeah,
really, it's delicious, and I think it is healthy for you as well. So.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, you get, this is another question that we get quite commonly actually in the doctor's kitchen. It's like, if you cook with a fermented food like kraut or kimchi, do you still get some of the benefits? And the honest answer is, do the probiotics die? Yes, they do die. You will stove off some of them because they are heat sensitive. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you get the benefits, because even if you've got dead microbes in the kimchi after you've cooked it in fried rice, there is something called postbiotics. So a postbiotic is a previously living biotic microbe that still confers benefits to the human host, because the cell walls of the microbes still can provide food to your microbes, and that actually changes the microbe population in your gut to a more favorable pattern. So, there's still benefits. I like to get a bit of both. Make sure you're getting some raw, some that, you've just taken out of the fridge, and some that you cook with, as long as you're getting some veggies, and they're definitely contributing to your fiber content.
Good.
As well.
Well, I'm glad I'm on the right track.
Yeah, you are. So, okay. So you've got those flavor additions. What is always in your fridge or freezer to healthify some of those quick meals?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I always have things like frozen peas. Edamame beans are great because they add that as well. And of course, they last for ages. Frozen cherries, things like that, which the kids love on their porridge. And I love it as well because it gives that the hot and cold. So you've got the hot porridge, the cold, ice cold cherries, some almond butter on top, little drop of maple, and it's just delicious. So things like that. And I do have things like prawns and fish. I mean, our freezer, it's slightly round. It's a bit embarrassing. Like you couldn't squeeze another thing in it.
Yeah, mine's like that too.
Yeah. I even, I might even freeze rice if I've had too much rice. Because even little portions add up, and then you've got enough for a quick lunch stir-fry rice.
Totally.
If I'm doing a quick stir-fry rice for lunch, I don't need a lot of rice. I actually mainly go on the veg. I just add a little bit for the extra carb in there.
Yeah.
So it's things like that. And we talked about miso paste, that lives in the fridge, and that is brilliant. And I use it in savoury and sweet. Savoury and sweet, and it's just adds a gorgeous flavour note to everything.
Do you? Because I'm learning a bit more about miso and how to use different types of miso, and I've always been sort of like confused about the different types.
Yeah.
And I think the main ones that people know about in this country are just white and brown.
Yeah.
But actually, when you step into an Asian supermarket or you go abroad, so many different types.
Yeah.
Educate us on the world of miso.
Funnily enough, I've just had a talk on miso this morning.
Oh, did you really? Oh, tell us. Pray do tell.
It was Bonnie from Miso Tasty, so shout out to Bonnie.
Nice.
And she was talking us through it. So in Japan, you don't just have jars of miso. You go in to the shops, and they're like little delis. So instead of tasting the olives or olive oil, you have little sort of tasters of different misos.
Wow.
Tons of misos. And as you said, there's not just your white and brown, there's red, but there's many different kinds. So it can be to do with the area, the fermentation process, other ingredients added. So it's very complex and lots of different sort of, so many different varieties. But for the purpose of us over here, where we're just getting started with miso, she recommends a light and a dark one.
Okay.
So a white and a red, for example.
Yeah.
And that's kind of all you need. Because, I think until we get to the point where we're connoisseurs, there's a lot of complexity to get your head around.
Yeah, totally.
And actually, I do use a sweet one as well, which is a really delicate one, and it's delicious in sort of the. Nobu had this dish. They've probably still got it. The black cod. I remember trying that for the first time a long time ago, and it was like blew my mind.
Yeah.
I'd never had miso.
Yeah.
And it was. Oh wow, this is amazing! And then I went on Google and realised it was 4 ingredients.
Yeah. It's just all about the rabata.
I started making it myself, and it's literally I've simplified it. Obviously, I don't marinate my cod for 3 days.
Sure,
We've got things to do.
Yeah.
But it's just something like miso, sake, mirin, sugar, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And it's just so delicious, and the sweet white miso just gives it that really delicate flavour and a bit sweeter.
Yeah.
So once you know how to use it, it can blow your mind. And in fact, actually, I just went to a Japanese restaurant at the weekend with my whole family. My dad doesn't like aubergine. He doesn't like aubergine, but he tried the nazu denkaku, which is the aubergine in the miso sauce.
Oh, nice.
And he ate the whole thing. And convert, right? Convert. And this is someone who doesn't really doesn't know Japanese food and certainly doesn't like aubergine.
Yeah. I found that a lot of people don't like okra for similar reasons to aubergine, because it has that sort of slimy texture, and people don't really like the actual taste of the flesh itself. But when you prepare it in a certain way, like if you've barbecued it or you put it on the rabata, the Japanese grill, or like okra, I dry fry it so you don't actually get that sort of like gloopiness. They love it. And there's so many benefits of these because they contain like high amounts of the soluble fibre, goes to the inner intestines, it slows absorption of sugar. It's a lot better for constipation and bloating and those sorts of things. So there's so many benefits to just getting that diversity. And your freezer sounds amazing. So edamame is one of my go-to freezer staples. High in protein, one of the highest legumes in protein, and it also has isoflavones as well, which is very good for you, phytoestrogenic effects, particularly for women. And then always frozen berries and all different types of frozen berries. And I haven't tried the cherries though.
Oh, they are my favourite.
Just a quick one. If you're enjoying this kind of content, you will love our free newsletter called Eat, Listen, Read. Every week, I send you a recipe that you'll absolutely love, something to listen to, something to read, sometimes something to watch, less than 3 minutes, and it will help you have a healthful, happier week. You can find that in the link down below.
Absolute favourite. So not only great in in obviously just chucking onto porridge, but I sort of reduce them down. A little bit of sugar or maple or honey. And actually, I've got a dish in the book that's adding Chinese 5-spice, sorry.
Nice.
And don't get the one with garlic and onion in it.
No.
That's not good. But honestly, it's absolutely delicious. It's got that star anise flavour in it, obviously, with the Chinese 5-spice. And you reduce it down so it's almost jammy.
Yeah.
And you have that with sort of cream cheese on little crostini.
Amazing.
Oh my goodness.
So just saucepan, a little bit of water, sugar, cherries, and then the 5-spice, no garlic. And then just that, and then just reduce it down and put it.
It's delicious. And I don't use as much sugar as a traditional recipe for this kind of thing, because even though I absolutely use sugar, and I do have a sweet tooth, but I do try not to use a big amount of it.
Totally, And
when I'm cooking for the kids, if I make them a banana bread, I don't do it with sugar in it. I just put extra raisins in it. And they love it. And if I want to sneak in a bit of honey when they're not looking, then I will. But so I just try and find ways of sweetening it in other ways. But also in the freezer, it would be things like the bananas. So if I've got bananas which are going brown, and that is often the case, and I don't have time to make a banana bread, I will just quickly put them in the freezer, take the skin off, put them in the freezer, and then they are there, and maybe make a smoothie for the kids at another point, because they love banana smoothies. Yeah,
that's really refreshing to hear, because I think people have a warped understanding of sugar and the difference between having a little bit of sugar and excess sugar. And actually the issue is that we have way too much sugar in our diet rather than the presence of any sugar. And I think, even in the Doctor's Kitchen here, with the recipes that we put on the app and the books and stuff, we use sugar as a condiment, as a way to balance, flavors. And it's really important, because if you have something that's too acidic, it's just not going to be pleasurable.
No.
You need to use it. We use it, when you're fermenting vegetables, for example, you do need the sugar for the microbes to feed off. So it's not like, I think people get a bit fearful of sugar, but you've got kids, you're probably conscious of children consuming too much sugar, because it's just so widely available now. And obviously we have a childhood obesity crisis. How you just mentioned using banana and whole sugars and all that kind of stuff. How do you navigate this quite complex world for your own kids?
It is really tough. I'll be honest. Actually, Logan, my eldest, he didn't have any sugar until he was 2, right? So I'd take him to the farmer's market on a Sunday, and I'd turn him around while I scoffed a cinnamon bun. Sorry, and that was kind of like, oh, well, he doesn't need to know. So that's what I used to do. And then, once he got to walking a bit more, it was impossible. And then as soon as they start school, they've got play dates, well-meaning family and friends give them bags of sweets, which I try and confiscate. Don't talk to me about Halloween. You could go down the route of trying to forbid it all, but it would not work. It's not going to be physically not possible. And actually, it's part of growing up, but we have to just make sure that the rest of the time we are keeping an eye on it. So in the week, they don't get the sweets unless my mum's on watch, which she is now.
You're going to come back and they're going to have these bags of sweets.
I'm telling, honestly, the stuff that, I'll say, Mum, why did you give them chocolate cake? It was in my pocket. What else am I supposed to do? They found it. I'm not even kidding. So we have all sorts of stories, but anyway. I just, for my part, I never buy them sugary cereals. They have sugar-free mueslis, my mueslis, porridges. When I've tried to give them sort of more savoury snacks when they come in. Often my go-to is peanut butter, sugar-free peanut butter. But when they get sick of that, I do a pizza crumpet. So I'm trying to get whole grain crumpets when I can get hold of them. Bit of tomato puree and a slice of, Gouda.
Oh, right. I don't know if it's
whichever
Gouda or
way,
Gouda.
Gouda or Gouda. Someone can tell me. And I put it under the grill, and it's a pizza crumpet, and they love it.
Nice.
So it's a savoury thing, and if I can get some, cucumber and tomato in there, it's not always like that. And they do have obviously they're kids, they have a sweet tooth, but I try my best.
Do they eat fermented food?
Do you know what? They have tried the kimchi, and they did like it. they like the kefir, although that's my kefir. I should really be giving them to it. Otherwise, they eat everything.
I was going to ask you about your kefir. Is that store bought or is that homemade?
I used to make it. I went through a real fermentation phase a few years ago. I was sort of researching business ideas, actually, as well as just getting into the whole concept of food. I love food. This is before I started my food business and before I started writing recipes. So I was making kimchi and kefir, water kefir, tapachi, and the kefir was like the magic porridge pot. I ended up sort of making so much of this damn stuff. And I didn't know how to eat it at that point, actually. It wasn't in my breakfast because I was probably going through a porridge phase or something, whatever phase I was at that point. And I was just ending up with too much of it. So I stopped that. And a few years later, I got back into the shop bought stuff. And I have to say, it's a gorgeous flavour. My one wasn't as nice as the one. My one was really tangy. So maybe I'd start it again, but I'm not sure. I think it might be tangier when you make it yourself. I think the batches tend to vary. Do you make it?
I don't at the moment, but we are experimenting with fermentation a lot, and I really want to do water kefir, tabache, and different flavors. Because I just think there's a world of fermenting that I want to dive into when I've got a little bit more time.
It's
I'm kind
fun.
of writing at the moment, so I don't want to get too distracted, but it's definitely on my to-do list.
I did a plum water kefir. That was really nice. I remember.
Plum water
random, totally
really?
random.
This is the thing, when you realize that you can ferment anything, odds and ends and different flavors and combinations, it's just like, okay. It's kind of like, discovering the spice cabinet for the first time. And like now I'm making these combinations with fennel seed and cumin and all these different things. It's like you can do the same thing in a version of a fermenter, a water kefir, a tapache, all these different ingredients and foods.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Asian Pantry. Asian Pantry. Let's talk about the Asian Pantry. Tell us about the concept behind the book.
Yeah.
And I want to ask about some unusual items in your pantry that perhaps other people wouldn't have heard of and why it's in your cupboards.
So the whole, concept about the Asian Pantry is showing people how easy it is to make Asian-inspired food with simple ingredients. Because I do think, and it's simple store cupboard ingredients, and that was really the crux of it. I remember speaking to people who'd say to me, I love Thai food, or I love Asian food, but I just don't know how to get started, or it seems so complicated. Yeah. And I think people think there's a big ingredients list. And you know what? I've never made a Thai curry paste in my life.
Have you not?
Never. And my mum has never made a Thai. My mum is Thai, by the way, if you didn't know.
Yeah.
And she's never made a Thai curry paste.
Which part of Thailand?
Bangkok.
Okay.
And I've spoken to Bangkokian friends. I think
is that how you say it? Bangkokian?
Yeah, not a Bangkoker. Bangkokian. As I had thought it was.
Really?
Bangkokian, yeah. So, and the Bangkokians use curry paste. And I've even been to Thailand at a delicious street food vendor selling curry, and I spotted...
Oh, they do, yes. I remember seeing, it must have been Rick Stein or someone, and he goes to one of these food markets and they have the ready-made paste there.
I mean, so you can, this is one of my hacks. Is you have an ingredient like that you can buy in the supermarket, and it means any day of the week I can have a curry ready in 20 minutes. That is how long it takes. And so that is what the book is all about, showing people it doesn't have to be complicated, and all you need is some simple store cupboard ingredients. And actually 99.9% are readily available. There's probably one ingredient that you might have to go to online for, chili bean paste.
Chili bean paste, I love. Is that the black bean?
No, it's a red one.
The red one, okay.
And actually I've given a hack for it, so if you can't get hold of it, you'd use a 50-50 mix of sriracha and miso paste.
Okay,
so
just 50-50?
Yeah,
that's it?
This is what I've done. This is what I've determined through my various kitchen tastings. So a 50-50 mix, whatever that, let's say you need 2 tablespoons of chili bean paste, 1 tablespoon of each.
Okay.
The miso provides that fermented umami-ness, which chili bean paste is very salty, and it's got sort of that fermented bean paste and garlic, and then you've got the heat and the chilies and the garlic from the sriracha. So it's a really good, it's not quite the same, but it's a great hack.
Yeah.
And the rest of the ingredients, it's things like curry powder, tahini, because actually in Asian cooking
they use tahini.
They use sesame paste, which is essentially the same thing. Hoisin sauce. Now, you think, I don't know, you can get that every shop pretty much. And it's brilliant in sauces. It's fantastic. So it's about using these readily available ingredients to make really sensational food. Like And actually, tamarind is one of my favourites, and you can get that from all major supermarkets.
You can get it in a lot of supermarkets these days. There's some that are like better than others. So some are like 50% sugar and 50% like tamarind puree. If you can, like, be extreme, like, but someone like my mum, she'll buy the actual block of tamarind and soak it and then strain it and do the whole thing. I personally don't do that. I just buy like a good quality paste. But wow, it brings like a whole nother level of flavor if you just invest in that one jar.
Absolutely. And, I use it in a sweet dish as well, actually.
Yeah.
I've got a tamarind toffee apple pudding.
Tamarind toffee apple pudding.
So it's not on the healthy scale, but it does have one of your 5 a day in it. Might get a half a thumbs up.
Yeah. You're not fooling us here, Dominique.
Coconut, does that count as one? But it adds a really delicious sort of tangy note to the sweetness, and it counters it beautifully. And I do things like a sort of kind of like a sweet and sour pork, but using tamarind in it. So there's different ways that you can use the ingredient, and I think that's also what the point of the book is about. It's if I'm saying, look, go and get tamarind, I'm going to give you a handful of recipes for each ingredient, so that you know what to do with it, and they are varied.
That's a really good point, because I think a lot of people say to me, like, look, I got this, paste that you told me to get, and I can only use in that one recipe. Yeah. And then unless I'm going to have that recipe 3 times a week for the next 2 weeks, it's going to sit in the back of my fridge and it's going to go off. Like, what else can I use it in? And so maybe there are like some practical applications of a paste that you can use, not just in the curry that you've got that paste for, but maybe other types of dishes. The first thing that comes to mind for me is if you've got a Thai paste, well, you can mix a little bit of water with a couple of tablespoons of it, and then just cover some vegetables in that mixture, and then just roast them, and then you've got some Thai flavored roast vegetables.
Absolutely. And curry paste is really versatile, and I don't think people realize that. So in my last book, Dominique's Kitchen, I had 10 recipes for Thai red curry paste that were not all curry. And in this book, again, there's so many. So it could be, obviously, you've got a Thai curry, but then you've got, I'm using it as a marinade for chicken. I'm using it in a stir-fry rice. In the last book, I used it for prawn cakes. Thai tuna fish cakes, where you're using it to flavour and season, because it's got incredible sort of depth of flavour in it.
Yeah. And I just think these are like hacks to just get more nutrition, more nutrients into your diet, because if it's flavourful and it's exciting, hopefully, you'll just want to cook with that ingredient, that condiment as much as possible. Yeah,
and I think for me, trying to increase your intake of veg, using these sauces, it's things like charring, as you said, charring with the okra. I love charring broccoli, charring my veg. It's like my kids will even say, can we have that charred cabbage? Because they know that it tastes really delicious. And, sometimes I literally will just char it with a little bit of oil and salt, but then I'll add a delicious sauce. So I made one the other day with tahini, soy, honey, and maybe a bit of garlic, and it just takes it to that next level.
Tell us how to use tahini actually, because that's another ingredient that loads of people will buy for an ottolenghi recipe, and they'll be like, okay, I can see it use a bit of feta and the sesame paste and all the rest of it, but they only kind of use those recipes with tahini. Yeah. But I think tahini with Asian food is a big unlock. So you just mentioned one, but what other sort of combinations would you use?
Because I think there's a dish called dan dan noodles where they use sesame paste in it. And so I've got a dish, it's a new potato salad, and it uses the tahini in it, chili oil, soy, a couple of other things, I think rice vinegar. Amazing. And it makes the most amazing, honestly, this is a potato salad, and I don't normally like potato salads. But the flavours are incredible. So you can use it like that, for example. I've actually got another dessert recipe, and it's using making an ice cream with it, a sort of no churn Cheats ice cream, and it uses the tahini in it, with bits of stem ginger. And it is decadent, it's rich, and again, a great way of
So how do you do it? So there's no churn, so you're just adding sesame paste, the stem ginger.
It's condensed milk makes it no churn. A bit like I've made Cheats Kulfis like this as well. So double cream and condensed milk makes a Cheats no churn ice cream. Nice. And the tahini, it's really, it's rich, but it's got that sort of slightly bitter note. Absolutely delicious in sweet.
And tahini is like one of my favorite ingredients, because if you get good quality tahini, which is literally just ground sesame that naturally separates, It's one of the best sources of calcium. It's got a really high protein content. It's super high in fibre. And you're getting all those nutrients that you find in the whole sesame as well. So there's micronutrients. So using it in like loads of interesting ways, not just as a flavor enhancer, but also as something that adds more nutrition to your food. It's so good.
So delicious.
I love it. Yeah. What's another sort of pantry item? Maybe not in your book. Maybe something that you have that people should be aware of.
Oh gosh, that's more sort of a bit more niche. Even.
Maybe a bit more niche, yeah. Because I mean, I'm going to start. I'm going to look up the jelly bean paste myself. And there's also something I came across the other day. I think it was yellow bean paste.
Yeah, so I tried to get hold of that once actually because I did work experience in a Thai restaurant a few years ago, Somsa, and they did this amazing dish.
Somsa's great.
It's amazing,
Somsa.
fantastic.
Yeah,
and they did this dish called phai dang. Again, my pronunciation. Sorry, Mum.
That's all right. Do you speak Thai?
I don't know. Obviously, I don't know.
Sorry, I didn't mean to call you out there.
I can say a few words, but they're pretty hopeless because the intonations are, so different. My mum has no idea what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah.
But it was a dish. It was morning glory, I think, stir fry at high heat with yellow bean paste, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I just created my own version of this dish, which I have a recipe for in the other book, which uses pak choi instead of morning glory, miso, and oyster sauce. So I was able to kind of replicate that sort
flavor,
of, it's that kind of rounded umami-ness that you get with it, and absolutely delicious. But I'm sure real yellow bean paste tastes, incredible.
Yeah. I'm going to start using more of the black bean paste as well. That's really salty, fermented kind of. Yeah. So I think there's just so much like we can do with Asian flavors and fusing them and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because,
Exactly. And that's what I'm all about. And it's not about, I guess the recipes in the Asian pantry are not all Asian necessarily.
Okay.
It's using Asian flavours.
So,
I've got a kimchi Caesar salad, for example.
Oh, really?
I've got dishes that use miso as a dressing instead of a Caesar dressing. So we're kind of using them in different ways.
Yeah.
So yes, we've got recipes that are inspired by my mum's favourite breakfast in Bangkok. But we've got other recipes that just sort of use them in kind of like, well, how can I make a delicious meal with these ingredients that I have in my store cupboard?
What's your mum's favourite breakfast in Bangkok?
Well, it was khao tom, which is a sort of a rice soup. So it's a humble dish, but they have it for breakfast. They have it for lunch. Every
Is it kind of like congee?
Kind of, yeah. Kind of similar. So the way I do it anyways, you fry off some garlic. So you create a garlic oil until it's crispy. So you take some of that off for the garnish because they are big on garlic oil there in Thailand.
Yeah.
I think I've added ginger and lemongrass to it. You can certainly add those to it. Then you just add some stock and you either add leftover cooked rice, which can be mushy, or some actual rice. And then that's kind of it. And then you kind of pimp it with whatever toppings. So you might also cook some pork mince in it. In this recipe, I've got capers and fried egg on top with the most delicious. It's you just slice red chilies in rice vinegar and somehow it brings out a sweetness. I can't explain it. And I love that. Just a little, again, little flavour hack.
Yeah.
You drizzle that on top. So you get heat, you get acidity and a little bit of sort of sweetness. Absolutely. Oh, I love that.
That sounds amazing. With your heritage, is that where you get most of your recipe inspiration from, or do you sort of like look at different areas, perhaps in the Southeast Asian continent? Like, where do you get your inspo from?
Thai would obviously be my sort of starting point because to me, the flavors of spicy, salty, sour, sweet, umami, just heaven.
Yeah.
But it is all from that whole area. Because actually my mum, her grandfather was Chinese. In Bangkok, there's a big influence from all other sort of Asian areas. It's a kind of melting pot, if you like. So she would not just have had Thai food. She'd have had Korean food, Japanese food. So it's I take inspiration from many, many different places, whether it's Vietnamese. I've got a Japanese friend who kindly lent me one of her recipes and soy butter salmon. I mean,
soy butter salmon.
Yeah, it's so...
Just soy, like miso.
Literally, it's got about 5... I mean, I can't remember exactly how many, but it's like a really short recipe.
Yeah.
And somehow the soy and the butter work together to create this magic, to, real umami-ness and sort of not so rich, but it just melts in the mouth. Absolutely delicious.
That sounds amazing. All right, I've got to ask you, rice.
Yes, yeah, I know, rice.
How do you cook your rice? And if you had all the time in the world, how would you cook your rice?
Yes, so I'm always pressed for time, as
you know.
Yeah. So the quickest method, but I tend to use jasmine rice, so that is what Thais use, and I do buy it in 5 kilo sacks.
Oh yeah.
Always have some in the some shed somewhere.
Yeah, it's like my family. We buy like the flour, whole grain flour in like 5 kilos.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually buying 20 kilos from Wing Yip, but it's very heavy to lift out of the shop.
Do they not help you?
We love rice. My husband's Scottish, so maybe potatoes might be his go-to, but he now eats rice.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So you
should create a hybrid dish with like
rice
tatties and rice.
Yeah, I do use potatoes as well,
but a bit carby. But
yeah, no. So rice is my definite go-to, but I do 1.5 absorption method. So I put the rice in the pan and I rinse it. Then I put in 1.5 times, and I use my finger to measure it.
How many times do you rinse it? So I'm going to get really detailed here.
Well, so my mum would probably rinse it loads, but I heard someone say rinse it twice, so I probably rinse it 3 times.
Okay, so you rinse it 3 times. So you got
Just
the pan in the pan that you're going to cook it.
Yes.
Okay, so rinse 3 times, and then now it's kind of dryish.
And what I tend to do, just in terms of portion size, which seems to work for me, is I'll do a ramekin. You know those goo pot ramekins that I might have some because I might have had a goo pot once in my life. So I'll do 1.5 for 2 of those ramekins for 2 of us.
Okay.
Seems to work, but often I'll just sort of make it up and just put a lot in the pan.
Yeah.
So then I've washed it, and I put water in it, and then I stick my finger in it.
Yeah.
And let's say the rice comes up to there, which is the first bit of my finger. I then look at that and go, well, what's another 50%?
Okay.
So 1.5, because you're meant to do 1.5 for jasmine.
Yeah.
Although methods do vary.
Yeah.
Okay. So whatever your method is, if it's foolproof, keep it. So then I fill it up there and I roughly go, well, that's about 1.5 times.
Yeah.
And then I put the lid on. I whack it up to full heat. Once I hear it bubbling and I can hear the pan lid go, then I turn it right down to the lowest setting.
Okay.
And I leave it for an unknown time, which...
This is why people can't cook rice.
I actually do
because no one can give strict instructions.
I know. Do you know what? I do have a recipe in my book, which is spicy tuna crispy rice, and it was really imperative that the rice was cooked properly. So I have gone to. It was almost my most tested recipe, making that damn rice.
Yeah.
So there is actually a foolproof method, which I tested many times. I got other people to test it.
Okay.
I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Sure, okay.
Because obviously that's in the book. And but
is it in this book?
Yeah, it's in
that
book.
Okay, I'm going to read it out.
So it's one of the first starters. It might be the first starter, in fact.
The first
of
starter.
That. But that works. It definitely works because I have tried. Oh, is it the first one?
We've got spicy tuna crispy rice.
There we go.
Crispy rice. Okay, fine. Bring the rice. Okay, let's do this. 150 grams of jasmine rice, unrinsed. 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a tablespoon of rice vinegar with some neutral oil to fry. Okay. Place the rice, 150 grams, in a small pan with 275 mils of water. So that is 1.5.
Roughly, I think. Now, the reason I didn't rinse it for this particular recipe was because I needed the rice to be sticky.
Oh, okay, fine. You want the starches to caramelize.
So I actually wanted it to be sticky because normally this recipe uses Japanese rice, which is stickier.
Yeah.
But you can't get hold of it as easily.
Right.
So I wanted something that was more accessible for everyone. So that's why that method. But if you follow that method.
Yeah. So stir to combine, bring to a boil, uncovered, over a high heat, then place the lid on, reduce the heat to low, cook for 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Until the rice is cooked. Take off the heat and leave to steam with the lid on for 5 minutes. Yeah. Okay, fine. So you
I'm pretty much
close. Pretty much there.
The home method is a bit more rogue because every now and then I put too much or too little water in because I don't measure it. Obviously, do as I do, say don't do as I do. So yeah, it's a bit more rogue, and also the amount of time. Last night I was cooking rice and I left it on, and then I decided to go to the shed to get something, and I'm like, why have I just gone to the shed? Well, and I'm looking out this and that, some sauces to bring to you, and I'm like, oh my goodness, the rice.
Yeah.
So it was slightly stuck to the bottom, but it was not terrible. So it just varies at home, and also. I put the lid on because I can hear it come into the boil, but for there I haven't, so people can see it. Yeah.
There's so many variations of how people make rice. I think like if you're going to be using rice a lot, like invest in a rice cooker. I don't know if that's controversial.
Well, I think lots of my Asian friends will have a rice cooker.
Okay.
And my mum, years ago, she bought me one, and when you have a family, she said, and I hadn't got any use for this one.
Yeah.
So I sort of quickly put it at the back of the shed, and it's probably still sitting there. But
yeah. I maybe you should dust it off and try to start.
I need to go and look for it.
Yeah, you should. Maybe there could be a whole book around the rice cooker, because you know how air fryers having a bit of a thing right now.
Yeah.
I think rice cookers could do, because you can do different times with different types of rice. There's so many different types of rice out there. Like my favorite is like whole grain, kalmagu, brown rice, basmati, and forbidden rice or Venus rice. But there's obviously risotto, barrio, cannoli. There's all these different types of rices out there. And I think the rice cooker could be like another sort of central kitchen gadget that gets like the attention it deserves.
Got to move one item. It might be my toasting machine. Will that have to go?
Oh, well, it could be the toasty. So this whole finger method, right? So I get it. Because I don't even measure. I literally put the rice in the pan. I free pour it from the packet and I sling in the water. And I just look by eye, I'm like, that'll do. And then I put the lid on. And I, if I had to measure it, I do absorption method. Yeah. But and my mum will do the finger method as well. But depending on the size of your pan, the shallowness of it.
It's still a volume thing. But some people do a finger. I was told by my Thai auntie, well, she didn't listen to her method. I couldn't understand it. So her finger method wasn't putting it. I put mine down to the bottom of the pan to measure the volume of rice.
Right.
So regardless of the size of the pan, it's always going to tell me.
Double. Okay.
Double.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Whereas my aunt would just say, it's just, up to the knuckle.
Up to the knuckle.
On top of that. And I'm like,
exactly.
I don't get it. How could that work? So I haven't risked it. I'm risk averse.
Yeah.
So, but basmati is more forgiving. It's definitely more forgiving. I think jasmine is, can go sticky over.
Yeah.
And if it does, guys, use it for cow tom. Because then
for what, sorry?
Use it for cow tom, the rice soup.
Oh,
so then
yes, of course,
you're faced with a batch.
Overcooked.
Yeah, you're faced with a batch of dodgy rice. That's fine. Use it tomorrow in your lovely Thai rice soup.
Yeah, you can rice cakes. There's so many different ways in which you can. Don't throw away your rice.
Do not throw it away. What I don't throw it. That's why my freezer's so round. I never throw anything away.
This book is awesome. I'm really excited to cook with you in the studio as well. And I just love your energy and, the excitement you have for food is brilliant. I love it. And your food is wonderful. And I'm really privileged to be able to experience some of it later on today in the studio. So thanks.
Thank you for having me. Been fantastic.
If you loved that episode, you will love the full library of podcasts from the Doctor's Kitchen Library. We talk about everything from inflammation, supplements, and food as medicine. Just like this episode right here. You can click it right now and check it out.